The rainy evening. The rain began as Elena walked home from the library, gentle drops that whispered against the cobblestones of the old town. She pulled her cardigan closer as the spring shower transformed into a steady rhythm, each droplet creating tiny rivers that wound between the ancient stones. The familiar streets of Millhaven seemed different in the rain, softer somehow, as if the water was washing away the harsh edges of the day. Elena had always loved rainy evenings. There was something magical about the way the world became quieter, more introspective, when wrapped in gentle precipitation. Tonight felt especially enchanting as the streetlights created golden circles of warmth in the misty darkness. The air smelled of petrichor and blooming jasmine from the gardens that lined the narrow streets. As the rain intensified, Elena realized she needed shelter. She had been so absorbed in her thoughts about the medieval manuscripts she'd been cataloging that she hadn't noticed how far she'd wandered from her usual route home. The library where she worked specialized in rare books and forgotten stories, and today she'd discovered a collection that had been donated anonymously the week before. Looking around, she spotted a bookshop she'd never noticed despite living in Millhaven for 3 years. The sign above the door read, "Marcus Rare Books and Curiosities," in elegant script that seemed to glow in the lamplight. Warm light spilled from the windows onto the wet street, and she could see tall shelves lined with books through the rain-streaked glass. The brass bell above the door chimed softly as Elena stepped inside, immediately enveloped by the comforting scent of old paper, leather bindings, and something else she couldn't quite identify. Perhaps vanilla or aged wood. The rain drummed gently against the windows, creating a soothing backdrop that made the shop feel like a sanctuary from the world outside. "Welcome, dear visitor," came a warm voice from behind a towering shelf of books. "Terrible weather to be caught without an umbrella." Elena turned to see a man in his 50s emerging from the shadows between the stacks. Marcus had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and silver-streaked hair that suggested wisdom earned through years of stories. His cardigan was the color of autumn leaves, and he moved with the careful grace of someone who spent his days among precious, fragile things. "I'm so sorry to drip all over your floor," Elena said, suddenly aware of the small puddle forming around her feet. "I just needed to get out of the rain." "Nonsense," Marcus replied with a gentle smile. "Books and rain have always been companions. Some of the best reading happens when the world outside is washing itself clean." He gestured toward a comfortable reading chair near the window where rain traced patterns down the glass. "Please make yourself at home while the storm passes." Elena accepted gratefully, settling into the worn leather chair that seemed to embrace her like an old friend. From this vantage point, she could watch the rain while being surrounded by the comforting presence of thousands of stories. The shop was larger than it had appeared from outside, with alcoves and reading nooks tucked between shelves that stretched toward the ceiling. "You work at the municipal library, don't you?" Marcus asked, bringing her a steaming cup of tea that smelled of chamomile and honey. "I remember seeing you there during the book donation drive last winter." "Yes, I'm Elena," she replied, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. "I specialize in cataloging historical collections. Thank you for this, it's perfect." Marcus nodded knowingly. "There's something special about tea and rain and stories, isn't there? They create the perfect atmosphere for discovery." As Elena sipped her tea, she noticed that Marcus kept glancing toward a particular section of the shop, as if drawn by some invisible force. Following his gaze, she saw a small alcove she hadn't noticed before, illuminated by a soft pool of light from an antique lamp. "Is there something special over there?" she asked, curiosity overcoming her natural shyness. Marcus paused for a moment, studying her face as if weighing something important. Finally, he set down his own cup and stood. "Actually, yes. I've been waiting for the right person to show those particular books to, someone who understands the power of forgotten stories." He led her to the alcove, where a small collection of books rested on a velvet-lined shelf. They were unlike anything Elena had seen before, bound in leather so soft it seemed to glow in the lamplight, with pages that appeared to shimmer when she moved her head. The books seemed to pulse with their own inner light, as if the stories within were alive and breathing. "These came in with that anonymous donation to your library. Marcus explained quietly. But they needed to come here first to wait for the right reader. They're not ordinary fairy tales. They're living stories, ones that change and grow depending on who reads them. Elena reached toward one of the books, feeling a strange warmth emanating from its cover. The moment her fingers touched the leather binding, she could swear she heard the sound of gentle rain from within its pages, mixed with something else, the faint sound of breathing, as if someone inside the story was sleeping deeply. "This one," Marcus said softly, pulling out a volume bound in deep blue leather with silver clasps. "Contains a version of Sleeping Beauty unlike any you've heard before. But it requires the right kind of reader, someone who believes in the power of stories to transform both the teller and the listener." The rain outside intensified, creating a cocoon of sound around the little bookshop. Elena felt as if she had stumbled into a story herself, one where mysterious bookshop owners offered magical books to rain-soaked librarians who found themselves in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. "What makes it different?" Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus opened the book carefully, revealing pages that seemed to glow with their own inner light. The text appeared to be written in silver ink that caught the lamplight, and Elena could see that the margins were filled with delicate illustrations that seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. "This sleeping beauty doesn't wait passively to be awakened," Marcus explained. "She chooses her sleep, uses it as a kind of healing magic to save others. And the one who awakens her, well, that's where the story becomes truly interesting." As Elena leaned closer to examine the beautiful book, she noticed that the rain outside had settled into a steady, hypnotic rhythm. The warm light of the bookshop, the comfortable chair, the mysterious book, and Marcus's gentle presence all combined to create an atmosphere of perfect tranquility. "Would you like to hear the story?" Marcus asked, settling into a chair across from her. "It's the perfect night for it. Rain has a way of making stories come alive." Elena nodded, already feeling herself being drawn into whatever magic existed within these pages. Outside, the rain continued its gentle percussion against the windows, as if the very weather was conspiring to create the perfect atmosphere for the tale that was about to unfold. As Marcus began to turn the pages, Elena noticed that the silver text seemed to respond to his voice, growing brighter when he spoke certain words. The story was beginning, and she had the distinct feeling that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The rain drummed its approval against the windows, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled like applause for the tale that was about to begin. The Awakening Dream. Marcus opened the glowing book carefully, his fingers tracing the silver text as he began to read. The rain outside seemed to synchronize with his voice, creating a gentle rhythm that made Elena feel as though she was being lulled into the story itself. The lamplight flickered softly, casting dancing shadows on the pages as the tale began to unfold. "In a village nestled between rolling hills and whispering forests," Marcus read, his voice taking on the cadence of ancient storytellers, "there lived a young woman named Sophia who possessed a gift that both blessed and burdened her. She could heal others by taking their pain into herself, transforming suffering into peaceful sleep." Elena found herself drawn deeper into the comfortable chair as the story washed over her. Through the rain-streaked windows, she could see the quiet street outside, but it felt like another world entirely. The bookshop had become a vessel carrying her into Sophia's realm, where magic flowed as naturally as the spring rain. "Sophia was not a princess in a castle," Marcus continued, turning the luminous pages, "but a healer who lived in a cottage filled with herbs and moonlight. Her hair was the color of autumn wheat, and her eyes held the depth of forest pools. The villagers came to her when conventional medicine failed, when hope seemed lost." The book's illustrations seemed to move in Elena's peripheral vision, showing glimpses of Sophia tending to the sick, her hands glowing with gentle light as she worked. Elena could almost smell the lavender and rosemary that would have filled the healer's cottage, could almost hear the grateful whispers of those Sophia had helped. But Sophia's gift came with a price. Marcus's voice grew softer, more contemplative. Each healing drew from her own life force. Each act of mercy aged her beyond her years. The village elders begged her to be more careful, to save some strength for herself. But Sophia could not turn away from those in need. Outside, the rain intensified again, drumming against the glass with renewed purpose. Elena noticed that the sound seemed to match the rhythm of her own heartbeat, as if the story was synchronizing with her very essence. Marcus paused to sip his tea, allowing the moment to settle between them like mist. "One autumn evening, a terrible plague came to the village," he continued, his eyes reflecting the book's silver glow. It was unlike anything the healers had seen before, a sickness of the soul that left people hollow, unable to dream or find peace in sleep. Children cried without comfort. Adults wandered aimlessly, and the elderly simply faded away. Elena shivered, pulling her cardigan closer as the story painted images of desperation and loss. But there was something in Marcus's voice that promised hope, an underlying current of redemption that flowed beneath the tale's darker moments. Sophia tried everything she knew, herb poultices, healing songs, prayers to the old gods. But the plague was too strong, too vast for conventional healing. As she watched her neighbors suffer, she realized there was only one way to save them all, though it would require a sacrifice beyond anything she had ever attempted. The book's pages seemed to glow brighter as Marcus reached the heart of the story. Elena could see new illustrations appearing in the margins. Images of Sophia standing in a moonlit grove, her arms raised to the stars, her face serene with determination. On the night of the harvest moon, Sophia gathered all the village's suffering into herself. She stood in the sacred grove where her grandmother had taught her the healing arts, and she spoke words older than memory. As she chanted, the villagers' pain flowed into her like a dark river, and with each breath she took their anguish away. Elena found herself holding her breath, completely absorbed in Sophia's sacrifice. The rain outside had gentled to a whisper, as if even nature was listening to the tale. But the weight of so much suffering was too much for one person to bear while remaining awake. Sophia felt herself growing heavy with the collected pain of her people. So she made a choice. She would carry their suffering into a healing sleep, transforming their nightmares into peaceful dreams through her own slumber. Marcus turned another page, revealing an illustration of Sophia lying beneath an ancient oak tree, surrounded by flowers that bloomed even in autumn's chill. Her face was peaceful, beautiful in its serenity, and light seemed to emanate from her sleeping form. As Sophia fell into her enchanted sleep, the plague lifted from the village. Children laughed again. Adults found purpose, and the elderly peacefully passed into gentle death instead of hollow fading. But Sophia remained sleeping, carrying their former pain within her dreams, transforming it slowly into something beautiful. Elena realized she was leaning forward, completely captivated by the story. The bookshop around her seemed to fade away, leaving only Marcus's voice, the gentle rain, and the glowing pages between them. The villagers built a garden around Sophia's sleeping form, tending her with the same devotion she had shown them. Seasons turned, and still she slept, her dreams weaving healing magic that protected the village from all manner of harm. They sang to her, read her stories, and waited for the one who could awaken her. "But who could awaken her?" Elena whispered, barely aware she had spoken aloud. Marcus smiled, his eyes twinkling with the secret knowledge of storytellers. That, dear Elena, was the mystery that puzzled everyone. Many tried, brave knights, wise scholars, even other healers. But none could reach Sophia in her deep slumber. Years passed, and she became legend, the sleeping healer who saved her village through the power of transformative dreams. The rain had almost stopped, leaving only the occasional drop against the windows. Elena noticed that the bookshop felt different now, charged with the magic of the story they had shared. She could feel something shifting inside her, as if Sophia's tale had awakened something she hadn't known was sleeping. Then one day, Marcus continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, a young man named Adrian came to the village. He was not a knight or a scholar, but a storyteller who had been traveling the world, collecting tales of healing and hope. When he heard Sophia's story, he knew he had to try to reach her. The final pages of the book seemed to glow with their own sunrise as Marcus read the conclusion. Elena could see Adrian kneeling beside Sophia's sleeping form, not trying to wake her with a kiss or magic spell, but instead sharing stories, tales of all the good that had grown from her sacrifice, of the children who lived because of her healing, of the love that flourished in a village free from suffering. As Adrian told Sophia these stories of hope born from her sacrifice, her dreams began to transform. The pain she had carried for so long became wisdom. The suffering became compassion, and slowly, gently, she began to wake, not because she was rescued, but because she had completed her healing work, both for herself and others. Marcus closed the book softly, and Elena realized that the rain had stopped entirely. Through the windows, she could see the first hints of dawn breaking through the clouds, painting the sky in soft pastels. "And they lived happily ever after?" Elena asked, though she somehow knew the answer would be more complex. "They lived meaningfully ever after," Marcus replied, setting the book carefully back on its velvet shelf. Sophia and Adrian became partners in healing. She with her gift of transformation, he with his stories that helped people understand their own capacity for growth. Together, they showed others that sometimes the deepest healing comes not from avoiding pain, but from learning to transform it into something beautiful. Elena sat in contemplative silence for a long moment, feeling the story settle into her heart like seeds finding fertile ground. Outside, the world was washing itself clean in the aftermath of the rain, and she felt as though something similar had happened within her own soul. "Thank you," she whispered to Marcus, though she wasn't entirely sure what she was thanking him for: the shelter from the rain, the magical story, or the sense that her life had just taken an important turn. Marcus smiled warmly as he walked her to the door. "Stories have a way of finding the people who need them most," he said, pressing a small card into her hand. "Come back anytime, Elena. There are always more tales waiting for the right reader." As Elena stepped out into the clean, rain-washed morning, she felt transformed. The familiar streets of Millhaven looked different now, full of possibility and magic she had never noticed before. In her pocket, the card from Marcus's bookshop seemed to pulse with warmth, a reminder that some stories never truly end. They simply wait for the next chapter to begin. Walking home through the gentle morning light, Elena carried Sophia's story with her like a blessing, knowing that she too had the power to transform pain into something beautiful, to heal through the simple act of caring deeply for others. The rain had stopped, but the magic it had brought would linger in her heart forever.